Good morning, everyone. In this subject of kinematics and theory of machine, we are talking about gear and gear trains. So, in this chapter, up till now, we have discussed about the importance of gears, what are the advantage and limitation of gear drive. Then we have discussed about classification of gears, and in past few lectures, we are talking about various terminologies which is used to define gears, and in that one we have talked about those various terminologies like pitch point, pitch circle, addendum, dedendum, working area, okay, clearance, and all these things. Then uh, we have talked about length of path of contact, length of arc of contact, module. So these are the some of the important terminologies what we have discussed so far in our uh, lectures. Now, one important theory which is also known as a law of gearing that we are going to discuss today. So, whenever we design any gear, that gear should follow this law. Then and then it will able to transmit the motion and power from gear 1 to gear 2. And generally the design is also based on this law of gearing. So what this law of gearing means to say, or how it will be derived, that we are going to see here. So generally it is derived, and this question is also asked in exam, that define and derive the law of gearing. So first of all you have to define that, and then you have to derive it. So to derive it, first of all we should have the basic knowledge about the diagram what is given over here. So in this one we have this one, gear number 1. Okay, this is gear number 1, its center O1, and here this teeth whatever shown over here, this one, okay, this teeth which is of a gear 1. Then we have second gear, and that is gear number 2, its center is O2, and of gear 2 we have this tooth. So this is the tooth of a gear number 2. Now we have a point number C here, point C, which is the contact point between the tooth of gear 1 and gear 2. Okay, so this is point C, which is a point of contact between gear tooth of gear number 1 and tooth of gear number 2. Now we have this line, normal line. We have drawn a normal line NN, common normal NN, which is passing through this point number C. Okay, so this line, it is a common normal line, and which is passing through the point number C. Then from point O1 to C, here this is a dotted line. Okay, from point O1 to C, here we have one dotted line. So I will highlight it over here. From point O1 to C, this is a dotted line which is joined to point number C. Same way, from O2 we have a dotted line which is connecting to the point number C. Okay, now on this normal line, normal line NN. On that normal line from point number O1, from point number O1, we have draw a line which is perpendicular to the common normal. Okay, so from this one we have draw a line which is perpendicular to this common normal. Okay, so it is touching at point A, and this is normal means that it is 90 degree. Same way, from O2 one line is drawn which is perpendicular to the common normal and which is touching at point number B. So we have 3 points on this common normal line. First point is A, this is the common point, and this is point number B. Okay, so this is we have to remember. This is how first of all we have to draw the diagram. Okay, how this diagram is drawn, it is important to understand. So first, what we have taken, we have taken gear number 1 and its center is O1. Then we have taken gear 2, its center is O2. Now on that one we have taken one tooth for the gear number 1, and we have also taken one tooth of gear number 2. Then the contact point of that gear number 1 and gear number 2, which is taken as a point number C. This is over here. And then we have joined O1C and O2C. Then next step what we have done, we have taken a line from O1 and normal to the point, normal to that common normal line. So we get point A, and from O2 we have draw another line which is connecting to the common normal right angle, and that is point B. So we have total 3 points on this line A, B and C. Now what we consider that, we consider that the gear number 1 which is rotating in clockwise direction as over here. It is rotating in clockwise direction, and when it is rotating at clockwise direction, its angular velocity is omega 1. While this gear 2 which is rotating in an anti-clockwise direction as shown in here, and it has angular velocity omega 2. Then what is the condition? The condition is that whenever the gear are rotating, okay, then the relative motion between that two gear, that should be 0. Then and then the two gears that will remain in contact. Okay, gear 1 and gear 2, they have a equal velocity. They must have a equal velocity. Then and then the gear, when it is in motion, it will remain in touch. Otherwise what happen, if the gear, suppose in this diagram, if the gear 2 is rotating faster than gear 1, then what happen, then this contact point over here, that will not remain throughout. If the gear 1 and gear 2 have a different velocity, then there will be a some point, some portion where the tooth of gear 1 and tooth of gear 2, that will not remain in contact. And that is the violation of law of gearing, because whenever we transmit the power, both the gear that must be remain in contact from the starting to the end. Then and then it will transmit power from gear 1 to gear 2. So how we can give it? Okay, so for that one, suppose we have simple equation, velocity v is equal to r into omega. This is the common equation. Now we will consider only for gear number 1. Okay, so how we can get the value of v1? V1 is equal to r1. R1 is nothing, radius, into omega 1. Now generally we know that suppose this is a circle, and this is the center. Now if I want to take the velocity of this point, so how we can measure, or what will be the direction of the velocity? You already studied in 12th standard or in previous semester, that suppose this is the radius, and perpendicular to that radius if you draw a line, that will be the velocity. So how we will get velocity over? So this is O1C, this line, suppose this is O1, okay, and this is point number C, okay, this is point number C. Now how we can get the velocity? We can get the velocity either in this direction or in this direction. So which direction we have to take? So that depends upon the rotation. So if your gear is rotating in this direction, then your velocity will be considered this one. And if you are rotating, if your gear is rotating in anti-clockwise direction, then this will be the v. Okay, so now here as you can see, this the direction of omega is this one in this gear. So O1C, this is our O1C, and from that one perpendicular to this one we have to draw a V1, and V1 will be goes in this direction. So this will be the direction of V1. As you can see, this will be the V1. We have a perpendicular line and that will be V1. Okay, then how we can get V2? So V2, the same similar thing here, O2C, and if it is rotating clockwise, then this one and this one. So same thing here, we have this one O2C, this is the O2C line, and perpendicular to that we have to draw. Now this omega 2 is rotating in this direction, so obviously your V2 is going in this direction. So this is how we will get the direction of V1 and V2. We will get the direction of V1 and V2 that are perpendicular to that direction of point of contact. So now we have to put all this value, and what is our requirement? Our requirement is that the velocity v1, or the requirement is that the relative motion between the two surface along the common normal must be equal to 0. So we have to draw a line such a way that is passing through v1 and v2 and it is touching at this common normal. Okay, so we have two component, and that when it will be 0 if v1 minus v2 is equal to 0, means this means is that v1 is equal to v2, but here v1 is going in this direction and v2 is going in this direction, but we require a component on this common normal line. Okay, we require a component on this common normal line. So how we will derive it? So for that one, as we know that, or if you see in this diagram, that this v1 is making angle alpha, this one is angle alpha, while v2 is making angle theta. So what equation we have? v1 cos alpha, that is the component of v1 on this line v. Same way, what is the component of v2? The component of v2 will be v2 cos theta. v2 cos theta. So now we have these two components, so v1 cos alpha and v2 cos theta. Now we do not know the value of V1, so or we will simply put the value of V1 and V2 by simplifying the equation. So how we can get it? So for getting the value of V1 and V2, this is the equation we have. V is equal to R omega. So V1 is equal to R1 omega 1. So V1, now what is R1? R1 means radius of gear number 1. So what is the radius of gear number 1? This one. O1C. This is the radius. Okay. So O1C. Radius means here it is the touching point. Okay. We are taking the velocity at the touching point. Okay. So that's why O1C into omega 1 into omega 1. So we just put this value over here, omega 1 into O1C. Same way, how we will get the value of V2? V2 will be similar equation. Okay. V2 will be the similar equation. V2 into R2 omega 2. V2 is equal to R2 into omega 2. Now, what will be the value of R2? R2 will be O2C. This one. So, O2C into omega 2. So, put this value over here. So, this is how we can get this one. Now, we have already drawn these two triangle over here. These two triangle over here. So, what are these two triangle? So, one by one we are going to discuss, because we have to solve it. Okay. So, for that one, we consider one triangle O1AC. This one. O1AC. This is the triangle. And in that triangle, this one is a 90 degree. So what will be the value of cos alpha? Cos alpha is equal to O1A. This is the direct equation, O1A divided by hypotenuse. So O1A divided by hypotenuse. So what is hypotenuse? Hypotenuse is O1C. O1C. Same way, we have another triangle. And that triangle is this one, O2BC. This is another triangle, O2BC. And again, this one is a 90 degree. So by using a simple cos theta, this angle is theta, and that's why cos theta is equal to O2B. This one is O2B divided by hypotenuse O2C. So this is the value what we get from these two triangles. Okay. And that's how we get the value of cos alpha and cos theta. Now we will put this value of cos alpha and cos theta in this equation. So what will it become? As you know that omega 1 O1C, that will remain as it is. Now instead of cos alpha, we have this O1A divided by O1C is equal to omega 2 into O2C, that will remain as it is. And instead of cos theta, we will put O2B divided by O2C. Now this O1C and O1C will be cancelled out. Same way, this O2C and O2C will be cancelled out. So what will be the equation? Equation will be omega 1 into O1A and omega 2 into O2B. Now we will rewrite this equation. So we'll take this omega 2 this side and this one. Okay. So we get equation omega 1 by omega 2 is equal to O2B. Okay. O2B divided by O1A. O2B divided by O1A. And this is equation number 2. R omega means whatever this is equation number 1 and this is equation number 2. Now still we have to consider one more thing, that whatever this common normal, okay, or if you see in this diagram, here we have this one is the pitch circle of gear number 1, and this is the pitch circle of gear number 2, and this gear number 1 and gear number 2 pitch circle, that will be meet at this point P over here. Okay, so this is point P. So if we draw a line from center O1, if we draw a line from center O1 to that particular point P, this one O1P, okay, similarly we can draw one line from center O to P. Okay, we have draw two line, one line that is the center O1P, and another line that is center O2P. So now these two triangles, okay, I will just draw with another color, O2P. So now we have two triangles that is generated over here. First triangle is O1A P, and second triangle that will be O2 B P. Okay, and this one is 90 degree and this one is 90 degree. Now both these triangle are a similar triangle. Okay, if you draw, then both the triangles, that will be a similar triangle. Now when we have a similar triangle, we have one law of triangular matrix. So what is that law? According to that law, we can write it that, suppose these are the two same triangles. So what will be the rule of that similar triangle? The rule of similar triangle is says that O2B O2B means this line is in similarity with this line. Okay, this line of this triangle, that will be in similarity of this triangle. So divide by O1A is equal to O2P means this line. O2P is in similarity with this O1P. Okay, so what we will get? O2P divided by O1P. Okay, so now here we have this O2B divided by O1, this one O1A. We have this equation O2B divided by O1A. Now we have this one O1. So now this is the value. Now instead of this O2B divided by O1A, we will put this value. Okay, so now putting the value of equation 3 in equation 2. So this is our equation 2. So what is the equation? Omega 1 divided by omega 2 is equal to O2b divided by O1a. So omega 2 divided by omega 1 divided by omega 2 is equal to O2b divided by O1a. Now instead of that, we will put this value. So is equal to O2p divided by O1p. And also we can write it similarity, this one, the same similarity we can write that AP means this triangle or this line is similar to this line. Okay, so we can also write it as a PB divided by PA. So this is the equation that we have to derive. Okay, and from this derivation we can say that the angular velocity ratio means this omega 1 by omega 2 is inversely proportional to the ratio of distance of point P. Ratio of means this is the P. P means what is P? As we already discussed the terminologies of the gear. In that one, what we have learned, we have learned that this point P, which is nothing but it is a common point. P is the common point on the pitch circle of these two circles. So this is the pitch point. This will be termed as a P is nothing but it is a pitch point. Okay, so from that pitch point to the center distance O1P. Same way from the pitch point to the center distance O2P. Okay, and that angular velocity is inversely proportional to the distance of that particular distance. Okay, so what we can say that the angular velocity ratio omega 1 divided by omega 2 is inversely proportional. Inversely proportional means for omega 1 the distance is O1a. As you can see, this one is the O1a. Sorry, O1p here, this one, not O1a, this one, O1p. And same way for omega 2 the distance is O2p. Okay, so for omega 2 the distance is O2p. So it is inversely proportional to the ratio of distances of point P from the center O1 and O2. So this is the law of gearing. Same way, if it is desired that the angular velocity of two gear remain constant, the common normal at the point of contact of two teeth always passes through the fixed point P, and this is the law of gearing. This is the law of gearing. What it mean to say that? It mean to say is that if it is desired that the angular velocity of two gear remain constant, the angular velocity of two gear remain constant, the common normal at that point means the common normal is this line. The common normal means this line that must be passes through the point, and that point will be a fixed point which is known as a P. Okay, so why we require this one? Because we want this omega 1 divided by omega 2 means the velocity ratio must be remain constant. Then throughout the motion your gear 1 and gear 2 that will be remain in a contact position, otherwise it will be some non-contact portion or zone. So to avoid that, we must have this omega 1 and omega 2 will be constant. So now if you see that the omega 1 p, this distance omega 1 p and omega 2 p, that is the constant, and that's why the value of omega 1 and omega 2 that we will get, it is a constant value. And this fundamental what we have discussed over here, okay, that is known as a law of gearing, and that must be satisfied while designing the profile of the gear. And if this condition is not satisfied, then we are not able to get a constant velocity ratio throughout the motion. So if this constant velocity ratio is not maintained, means whenever the gear 1 will transmit power to the gear 2, there will be some loss of motion and power. So that's why this law of gearing is very important. And what it means to say is that the angular velocity of two gear will remain constant, then the common normal at that point of contact between the two tooth that must passes through a fixed point or must be passes through a pitch point. That fixed point is nothing but it is a pitch point, and that is the law of gearing. And this law of gearing is very important to design the gear. Okay, then we will discuss. So this is the end of this theory, law of gearing. Now we will discuss some important uh, profiles of a gear. Okay, there are two profiles of a gear. First one is known as cycloidal tooth, and second one is a involute tooth. So in that cycloidal tooth, the pressure angle varies from a maximum at the beginning of the engagement and reduces to 0 at the pitch point, and again it will increase and reach maximum at the end of the engagement and result in a smooth running of gear. Okay, this is for cycloidal teeth. Okay, so what it means to say is that suppose this is the gear. So at the start of the engagement up to this one, okay, here it will be maximum, and when it will be reached here it will be 0, and then again it start increasing and reach maximum at the disengagement, okay, during the cycloidal gear. While in involute gear, the pressure angle is constant throughout the engagement of the tooth, and it will remain same from the start to the end. Okay, so here in the involute gear, from this starting point to the end point, the pressure angle that will remain constant. While in involute gear, in cycloidal gear, it will maximum, then it will reduce to the 0, and then again it will reach to the maximum. Then second comparison is that in a involute double curves of the tooth. What are the double curves? Epicycloid and hypocycloid. While in a involute gear, there will be only a single curve, so that the manufacturing is easy as compared to cycloidal tooth, where the manufacturing of that cycloidal tooth is difficult. Why? Because whenever we manufacture the tooth, we have to take two gears or two curves, epicycloid and hypocycloid. Then owing to the difficulty of manufacturing, these are costlier. Obviously, this epicycloid curve and hypocycloid curve generation is difficult while we are manufacturing it. So the cost will become higher in case of a cycloidal tool. While here, as we know that only one curve is to be generated, so the cost is less as compared to that cycloidal teeth. So it is cheaper. Then exact center distance is required to transmit a constant velocity ratio. So this is very important difference. We require exact distance, means this O1C or this O1P and O2P, that should not be changed. Okay, that should be remain exact. While here the center distance, a little variation, okay, it is a little variation in the certain distance that will not affect to the velocity ratio. So this is also one advantage of this involute gear as compared to cycloidal teeth. The phenomena of interference does not occur at all. So this is the advantage of this cycloidal teeth. Interference. What is interference? That we'll see. Interference means uh, uh, the tooth will cut some portion of the another tooth. Okay, so that is termed as the interference. We do not require this interference. We have to neglect it. Okay, so this does not occur. So means it is the good advantage of this cycloidal tooth. While interference can occur if the condition of minimum number of tooth on a gear is not followed. Okay, so there will be a chance of interference, but we can neglect that interference by considering the minimum number of tooth on the gear. Okay, so while in the cycloidal tooth this does not occurs at all. So this is the advantage of cycloidal tooth as compared to involute tooth. The teeth have a spreaded flank and thrust are stronger. Okay, so the flank is spreaded, so its width is comparatively higher, so it will they are stronger as compared to involute tooth. While in a involute tooth, the radial flank, it has a radial flank, so they are weaker as compared to cycloidal tooth of the same shape and size. Okay, same size. If you want to generate a same size or for the same transmission capacity, the cycloidal tooth, that will they are stronger because they have a wide flank, while in a involute tooth it has a uh, radial flank, so that it is weaker as compared to this cycloidal tooth. And in this, a convex flank always has a contact with concave face, resulting in less wear. Okay, so this is important. Less wear means your the life of the cycloidal tooth is higher, while here two convex surfaces are in contact. Here convex and concave, two opposite surfaces are in contact, so that the wear is less. But here we have two convex surface are in contact, and therefore the wear is more as compared to this cycloidal tooth. Okay, so this is the difference between the cycloidal tooth and the involute tooth. Now